Progesterone part 2, and this time I'm going to talk all about progesterone and IVF. How come if we don't need progesterone support in spontaneous ovulation cycles, do we need progesterone support in IVF? Don't you have a ton of follicles in IVF, so wouldn't you have a ton of corpus luteal making progesterone? You're absolutely right, but there are specific reasons why we need progesterone when we're doing an IVF cycle, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So this all goes back to the luteal phase, where remember the LH hormone from the brain is coming down to the ovaries and the corpus luteum, telling the corpus luteum to keep making progesterone until the HCG hormone comes in and rescues the corpus luteum. The main point and difference as to why you need progesterone support, in addition to what the corpus luteum is making, is that with IVF, you're typically taking a medication that is going to suppress the brain from making LH in the way that it usually is. These are medications like GnRH antagonists, so Cetrotide, Ganirelix, or GnRH agonists like Lupron. These are medications that are necessary in IVF to prevent you from prematurely ovulating, but they also may make the corpus luteum function abnormally and therefore cannot necessarily make the right amount of progesterone that you would need for a pregnancy to be supported appropriately. Now, the big question here is what kind of progesterone that we're going to use, and there's different forms of progesterone. So how do we know which one is the right one for you? And the main point here is whether you are taking progesterone as a replacement for what your body is going to make, or if you're taking it as a supplement to what your body is making. With a fresh transfer, remember, you have all of those follicles that you've removed the fluid from, and they become corpus luteal that make progesterone. However, the support to the corpus luteum is different because you've been taking those suppressive medications. So with a fresh transfer, because you are making some progesterone, you have a couple of options from a progesterone supplementation standpoint, because you're adding this progesterone in addition to the progesterone you're making yourself. Studies have shown that vaginal progesterone can be equivalent to intramuscular progesterone, and so both of those options may be available to you. This is also the case with a natural cycle or a modified natural frozen embryo transfer. You've ovulated, you are making progesterone, and therefore typically will add vaginal progesterone. Now, with a programmed or hormone replacement type frozen embryo transfer, remember, you are typically not ovulating in this type of transfer prep. Because of that, you need progesterone replacement. And in this situation, injectable progesterone is the best option. Currently in the United States, intramuscular progesterone injections are the ones that are used most commonly for these kinds of transfers. However, studies do show that subcutaneous injections of progesterone are equivalent. This is used very commonly in Europe. It just hasn't made its way to the US as commonly as the intramuscular progesterone is. Bottom line is the difference here when you're using progesterone for IVF compared with whether or not you need progesterone in an ovulatory cycle trying to conceive on your own is that typically with IVF you are taking medications that you are disrupting the way that the corpus luteum should be able to support implantation and early pregnancy, and so you need that progesterone support, either supplemental or replacement.